The center block on Parliament Hill is probably one of the most famous and recognizable buildings in Canada. But this structure is the second one to occupy this very spot. The first one, built in the third quarter of the 19th century, was destroyed by fire 100 years ago.
It was a very tragic event. Fire broke out on the evening of February 3rd while the House was in session. And it started in the reading room of the Parliament buildings, and it quickly spread throughout the entire building. And by midnight that night, the tower had collapsed, the roofs had collapsed, 7 people were killed, and it was quite a tragedy.
Canada was at war at the time, and the enemy was quickly suspected.
Speaking of the war, one of the ideas that was floated at the time was that the fire might have been sabotage, German sabotage, because of all the concern about the war. And there was a royal commission set up to look into this, and they didn't find any evidence of that. They did conclude that it was impossible to say what the real cause of the fire was, but smoking in the reading room was determined to be the most likely cause.
The fire raged on for more than 12 hours. But when it was finally over, the parliamentary library stood, almost intact, behind the rubble of the center block, something that astonishes historians to this day.
Well, that's quite amazing when you look at the photographs, because the entire Parliament building burned, but the library, which is connected to it, did not burn. And the reason for that, partly I think the winds changed during the fire, but also one of the employees of the library, a clerk by the name of Mollie MacCormac, closed an iron door that connects the library with the Parliament buildings. And that action, plus the change in the wind, saved the entire library. There was some water damage, but the entire library was saved. And if you look at the photographs after the fire, you see a pile of rubble and then the octagonal library standing alone. It's quite amazing.
Better than anyone, perhaps, Mollie MacCormac knew how precious and irreplaceable the library and its contents were. His dedication to the Parliamentary Library, as well as his knowledge of early parliamentary history of Canada, was recognized on the day he retired after over 50 years of service. A year earlier, he became a member of the Order of the British Empire. His granddaughter, Mollie MacCormac, would like more people to know what her grandfather did to save the library the night of the blaze. She reads a passage of the speech pronounced in his honor the day he retired.
When the disastrous fire of February the 3rd, 1916 swept these great buildings, you had the foresight and quickness to close those iron doors, which probably saved this special part of the building from destruction. It was only an illustration of your devotion to the place to which you were so deeply attached. Sir John A. Macdonald was Prime Minister of Canada when you commenced work at the library. It was the 5th Parliament of our country, and the present is the 18th. You have the unusual experience of having served under every Prime Minister of Canada, with the exception of Alexander Mackenzie. It's an experience of which you may well be proud, and such as falls to the lot of very few men.
The construction of the new center block took into account the lessons learned from the previous one. The extensive use of wood for the interior of the building was replaced by masonry. The walls are covered with 24 different kinds of stone, but Nepean sandstone is the primary material. The new building is also more spacious than its predecessor because of the rapidly growing size of the country. At its center, the Peace Tower is a tribute to Canada's commitment to peace in the world. In a few years, the center block will be vacated to allow for major renovations. It is estimated it will take more than a decade to complete the seismic upgrade and install the latest security technology. During the renovations, members of Parliament will sit in the West Block in what will be a temporary House of Commons.